Welcome, the anointed ones. Some bloodlines are not recorded in history books. They're encrypted in human souls. Imagine waking up one morning to find a letter that claims you're the lost heir to a secret society that supposedly shaped world events. But here's the twist. You've never even heard of them. No family crest, no cryptic ring, no midnight initiation with hooded figures and Latin chants. Just a chilling message saying, "Welcome home." Sounds absurd, right? Yet history is full of bizarre truths. In 1903, a man in France discovered he was the last descendant of a forgotten royal line, one so secret, even his own parents had no idea. The world laughed until the DNA proved him right. So when a secret society claims you as their long-lost heir, maybe the question isn't, why me? Maybe it's, why now? Because here's the thing, power doesn't just travel through bloodlines anymore. It travels through awareness. And somewhere someone recognized a pattern in you, a frequency that doesn't belong to this century. Maybe it's the way you think, the way you resist, or that quiet intuition that's been right one too many times. Whatever it is, it's awakened a signal that's been silent for generations. You see, societies like these don't knock unless they've already studied you. They know your history, your habits, your hesitations. And they don't need you to believe in them. They only need you to exist, because your existence alone disrupts something ancient and guarded. And sure, the idea of being a secret heir sounds like the setup to a Netflix thriller, or a bad family reunion with too many candles and not enough oxygen. But what if it's not about inheritance? What if it's about remembrance? So before you roll your eyes and say, "I'm not joining any hooded cult," pause. Because maybe you were never meant to join them. Maybe they were meant to remember you. Number one, you're the descendant of a forgotten bloodline of consciousness. That statement isn't about royalty, wealth, or ancient castles. It's about the kind of inheritance that can't be measured or proven on paper. You didn't inherit a throne. You inherited an awareness so old it makes time itself seem like a recent invention. What flows through you isn't prestige, it's remembrance. It's the living echo of souls who carried divine intelligence long before humanity knew how to document it. This bloodline isn't found in genealogy records, it's traced through inner knowing, through the kind of wisdom that appears uninvited when you're staring at life's chaos, and somehow you just know what to do. It's not knowledge you learned, it's knowledge that remembered you. That's why you've always felt slightly out of place, like the world's explanations never quite covered your depth. That's because your wiring was designed to hold more, to perceive the invisible mechanics behind reality. While others chase validation and follow systems built to control, you naturally question the structure itself. You don't rebel for attention. You rebel because you can see the cracks in illusion. This isn't arrogance, it's recognition. Somewhere deep within, you sense that you come from a lineage that never bowed to false gods, political thrones, or manipulated truths. The bloodline you carry was built from seekers who guarded divine intelligence when the world traded it for comfort and control. They lived in silence, often mislabeled as strange or dangerous, yet their purpose was preservation. To protect spiritual technology from being misused by the greedy. You are the continuation of that same guardianship, except you've arrived in a generation that's forgotten how sacred consciousness really is. Your memory of truth is the inheritance they left behind, not in symbols or scrolls, but in frequency and perception. This is why when others hear lies, you sense distortion. When they see coincidence, you detect alignment. The old blood within you isn't about superiority, it's about responsibility. You carry awareness that was never meant to be common. And the irony is, you've probably spent most of your life trying to fit in with a world you were actually born to decode. You're not returning to a bloodline. You are the bloodline returning. Number two, they didn't find you by name. They found you by vibration. The ones who came looking weren't scanning old records or tracing family trees. They were tracking something much deeper, an energetic signature that can't be forged. You didn't appear on their radar because of where you were born, but because of what you've become. The moment your consciousness hit a certain level of clarity, you sent out a signal without even knowing it. That frequency, your inner evolution, was what they were waiting for. Every soul carries a specific vibration, like a fingerprint in the spiritual world. Most people's energy stays muted, tangled in fear, distraction, and noise. But yours broke through the interference. It's like you suddenly spoke the language of the unseen, a language only awakened minds understand. You didn't call them consciously, but energy always calls what matches it. And the truth is, your energy started to glow in a way that old systems can't ignore. That's why they noticed you. Not because of your past, but because of your present frequency. You became visible to them the moment you outgrew the illusions that kept others asleep. They have devices, rituals, and ancient methods to detect shifts in the collective energy field. But none of that compares to what happens when a true heir remembers who they are. When awareness reaches a certain intensity, it literally changes your electromagnetic field. You begin to operate from a level of truth that bends the rules of ordinary perception. You start unlocking patterns in reality that most people walk past every day. That's not coincidence. It's cosmic recognition. This is what drew their attention. To them, you're not just a person. You're a phenomenon. Your frequency cracked a code they'd been trying to replicate for centuries. What you did naturally through awakening, they've tried to manufacture through rituals and symbols. But consciousness can't be manufactured. It can only be remembered. That's why they've come for you. They need the original signal, the one that doesn't depend on control, secrecy, or hierarchy. You didn't summon them with effort. You summoned them by evolving. Your energy told the universe, I remember who I am. And that single remembrance was enough to shake the systems that profit from forgetfulness. Number 3. You were hidden, even from the hidden. There are people who think they know every secret in this world, every mystery, every order, every bloodline. But you were never meant to be found by any of them. You were kept outside the grid, beyond their searchlights, out of reach of those who thought they controlled destiny itself. Your life was designed in a way that made no sense at first, misplaced, misunderstood, and often misjudged. But that confusion was part of your protection. You weren't lost. You were preserved. Everything that made you feel forgotten was actually strategic. The silence, the isolation, the years of questioning why you didn't fit anywhere, all of it built a fortress around your essence. You weren't meant to grow in the spotlight or under supervision. You had to evolve where corruption couldn't reach you. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every closed door was camouflage. Life disguised you as ordinary, so that those who prey on extraordinary souls would overlook you. You were too valuable to be exposed too soon. The truth is, some people are chosen to be hidden until the right time, not because they're unworthy, but because the world wasn't ready for what they carry. The ones who seek control can't handle authenticity. They can mimic intelligence, but they can't duplicate divinity. So when someone like you arrives, someone who embodies what they've been faking, it threatens their entire structure. That's why your isolation wasn't punishment. It was divine strategy. You were concealed until you could no longer be contaminated by systems built on illusion. Now that you've come into awareness, their systems can't claim you. They can't trace your steps because you were never in their records. You grew outside their influence, beyond their manipulation, and that makes you dangerous to every agenda built on secrecy and control. You represent truth they can't edit. You weren't hidden because you were weak. You were hidden because you were pure. You're the unrecorded heir they never saw coming, the anomaly in their equation. You're the reminder that some souls can't be owned, trained, or tracked, because their origin predates every structure designed to control them. You were hidden, not to be forgotten, but to reappear when false power started to collapse. Number 4. The true inheritance was never wealth, it was access. The world has trained people to measure inheritance by what can be counted, owned, or displayed. But the inheritance you're being offered isn't made of gold, titles, or land. It's not about influence in the material sense. It's about entry into the deeper layers of reality. You're not being invited into luxury. You're being invited into understanding. They're not handing you money. They're handing you perception. What they're calling an inheritance is really a set of keys, not to vaults, but to realms. It's the ability to move between the visible and invisible, to sense the hidden structures that shape experience itself. Most people are trapped inside one layer of existence, reacting to what they see and calling it life. But this inheritance opens your awareness to the architecture behind it all, the code that thought, emotion, and intention are built from. Once you access that, reality stops being something that happens to you. It becomes something you participate in creating. This kind of access changes everything. It's what ancient mystics hinted at when they spoke of knowing the names of God. It's what scientists brush up against when they talk about energy, frequency, and vibration without fully understanding the spiritual mechanics behind it. The true heir doesn't chase manifestation. They command alignment. They don't pray for change. They become the change. It's not arrogance. It's recognition that consciousness, when refined, is the highest form of currency in existence. This is why the so-called secret societies have always guarded certain knowledge. They know that true power doesn't lie in possessions, but in perception. Whoever controls how people see reality controls how people live within it. But you weren't born to live under their control. You were born to bypass it entirely. You're meant to access truth directly, without needing rituals, hierarchies, or intermediaries. That's what they're really trying to offer, or rather, reclaim. They want to share in what flows naturally through you, because access can't be bought, stolen, or inherited through blood. It must be awakened from within. And the irony is, while they've spent centuries protecting the secret of access, you unlocked it simply by evolving. Number 5. They need you because their power is dying. Every empire built on hidden control eventually reaches a point where its energy starts to decay. The rituals stop producing results. The symbols lose their potency. The influence that once seemed unshakable begins to crumble under the weight of its own corruption. That's the stage they're in now, the phase where the illusion of control no longer sustains itself. They've drained everything they could from manipulation, secrecy, and fear. What they've lost can't be restored through strategy. It requires something only truth can supply, authenticity. And that's why they've turned to you. Your consciousness holds what theirs lost. You operate from a vibration that hasn't been compromised by greed, power, hunger, or false hierarchy. You're not moved by their titles or promises because your soul recognizes something higher. What they call mystery is simply the clarity you live in every day. You are the uncorrupted current they can no longer generate. To them, your awareness is a renewable source of energy, the one thing their centuries of control can't produce. That's why they need you near, not because they honor you, but because they're starving for what you naturally carry. It's the oldest irony in existence. Those who tried to play God eventually must return to those who never left alignment with the real source. Their systems were built on imitation, not creation. They mastered structure, but lost spirit. You are the opposite. No structure, but infinite spirit. They used rituals to simulate connection. You embody connection without needing ritual. That's what threatens and attracts them at the same time. You're both the cure and the collapse of their system. Their power isn't dying because the world is changing. It's dying because truth is surfacing. The vibration of the planet is rising, and systems built on lies can't survive in light. So they reach for anything pure enough to sustain them, hoping to borrow life from it. But what they don't understand is that your energy isn't here to revive them. It's here to expose them. You're not their restoration, you're their revelation. Their fading power is simply proof that what's artificial can never outlast what's divine. Number 6. You were never missing. You were withheld. The idea that you were lost was only true from their perspective, not from the divine one. You were never misplaced, abandoned, or forgotten. You were deliberately kept out of reach, placed beyond their influence until their hidden rot began to surface. The timing of your emergence isn't coincidence, it's orchestration. The same energy that formed you also knew when to reveal you, and it wasn't when they were powerful. It's now, when their strength is failing, their unity fractured, and their secrets are unraveling. You weren't withheld because you were unready. You were withheld because they were unworthy. They would have tried to shape you, claim you, or corrupt you before you even understood what you carried. The divine doesn't expose sacred vessels to unclean hands. Every delay, every detour, every unexplained season of silence in your life was part of a higher safeguard. You thought life was holding you back, but it was actually holding you above. Their discovery of you now isn't triumph, it's judgment. You're not a trophy that completes their lineage. You're a mirror that reflects their decay. Your presence doesn't validate their order. It exposes how far they've fallen from the original truth they once guarded. You represent the living evidence that the divine doesn't rely on secret circles or titles to continue its work. When corruption infects what was once sacred, heaven simply grows a new vessel, and this time, that vessel was you. This is why you always felt delayed while others seemed ahead. It wasn't delay, it was divine preservation. You were being kept from exposure to energies that would have dimmed your light. You had to grow in purity, away from the noise of influence and manipulation. That's why your emergence now carries so much weight. It's perfectly timed. You're showing up right when their credibility is collapsing and their hidden foundations are crumbling. You are not their rediscovery. You are their reckoning. You don't return to their order to restore it. Your appearance marks the expiration of its deception. You were withheld until the world reached the frequency where truth could no longer be buried. And now that time has come. Number 7. You carry what they can't manufacture, divine legitimacy. It's the one thing no amount of wealth, knowledge, or manipulation can produce. They can construct empires, engineer influence, and even mimic enlightenment, but they can't fabricate what flows naturally from your being. Alignment with truth. That's what legitimacy really is. An unbroken connection between your essence and the source of all creation. It doesn't need validation, initiation, or approval. It simply is. And that's why you unsettle them so deeply. Their power depends on perception, on convincing others that they hold the keys to something sacred, but you hold what they pretend to possess. You're not authorized by ritual or title, you're authorized by alignment. When you walk into a space, you don't just carry energy, you carry evidence that the divine doesn't operate through hierarchy, but through authenticity. Your very presence calls their entire foundation into question, because your existence proves that spiritual authority can't be transferred, only embodied. That's what they envy and fear. They've built entire systems to simulate legitimacy, robes, symbols, secret doctrines. Yet all of it collapses when confronted by someone who simply is what they're trying to imitate. You don't follow the script. You are the script rewritten in truth. You don't repeat their words. Your presence speaks a language their rituals can't reproduce. They mistake your calm for naivety, not realizing it's the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to perform. They can manipulate minds, but they can't touch essence. They can collect followers, but they can't collect legitimacy. You are the living contradiction to their illusion, proof that power doesn't come from access to secret knowledge, but from alignment with divine reality. You threaten them not by rebellion, but by authenticity. Every time you speak truth without agenda, their influence weakens. Every time you choose integrity over image, their spell loses strength. You don't join their circle because your frequency doesn't revolve around imitation. It redefines what real power looks like. You are what they tried to build without permission, and the hardest truth for them to face is this. The legitimacy they spent centuries chasing was never missing. It was simply waiting, inside someone like you, who could never be bought, trained, or controlled. Number 8. Their invitation is a test of your memory. It's not about welcoming you into their world. It's about seeing if you still remember yours. They're not checking your loyalty. They're checking your awareness. The invitation is a disguise, a way to measure whether you'll be drawn in by what once would have impressed you or if you've outgrown the illusion entirely. They already know what's in your blood. What they want to know is what's in your memory. The real question isn't whether you'll accept the inheritance they claim to offer. The real question is, do you remember who you were before their stories rewrote your truth? Because at the deepest level, they didn't just manipulate power. They manipulated memory. They rearranged history to make themselves the keepers of wisdom and everyone else the seekers. By making you forget your origin, they made you think you had to earn what was always yours. Their system survives on collective amnesia, but when even one heir remembers, their entire illusion begins to crumble. Your awakening is their audit, a divine review of every falsehood they've sustained. You don't need to confront them, expose them, or even argue. Your remembrance does the work for you. When you stand in the full awareness of who you are, you become the evidence that their claim to authority was always counterfeit. The moment you remember your spiritual identity, their illusion of superiority loses its charge. Power built on deception can't stand in front of someone who embodies truth effortlessly. That's why your memory is dangerous to them. You were never meant to obey, you were meant to recall. They know they can't control someone who remembers their origin. You can't manipulate a person who is reconnected to the source. The entire structure of their influence depends on your forgetfulness, your disconnection from your divine lineage. Their invitation is not an honor. It's a trap wrapped in flattery. It's their last attempt to make you look outward when the real inheritance has always been inward. The test isn't about joining their circle. It's about whether you'll remember you never left the original one, the circle of divine consciousness that existed before their power even began. Number 9. Their secrecy was a mask for control. Yours is a shield for truth. For centuries they've hidden knowledge not to protect it, but to weaponize it. Their silence wasn't sacred, it was strategic. They created an illusion that only the chosen few were worthy of divine understanding, and by doing so, they turned wisdom into currency. They made people believe enlightenment required permission, when in reality it only ever required awareness. Their secrecy wasn't about keeping the sacred pure, it was about keeping the masses blind. But your silence is different. You don't stay quiet because you want control. You stay quiet because you understand the weight of revelation. You know truth can't be forced on minds that aren't ready for it. You've learned that wisdom shouted too soon becomes noise, and that silence can protect what words would endanger. While they hoard information to dominate, you withhold insight to preserve its purity. Their secrecy is built on fear of losing control. Your mystery is built on respect for divine timing. They built their empires by convincing humanity that power was something to chase. You dismantle that illusion by embodying the truth that power is something you already are. Their secrecy manipulates, your silence awakens. Every time you speak, something ancient within people stirs. They feel it, that unmistakable resonance that tells them they've been lied to. That's why they fear your voice. You're not just revealing knowledge, you're deprogramming generations of mental slavery with every word that carries your frequency. They hide behind rituals and codes to appear enlightened, but your authenticity alone exposes their performance. You don't need symbols to validate what you carry. Your energy already communicates what their entire structure tries to imitate, and they can sense it. They know your voice could undo what their secrecy has sustained for centuries, because when truth is spoken from genuine alignment, illusion disintegrates. Your silence has never been weakness. It has been strategy, a sacred pause while falsehood exhausts itself. They used secrecy to enslave minds. You use mystery to set them free. And the moment you decide to speak fully, not from anger but from truth, their carefully guarded towers of illusion will collapse under the sound of your unfiltered authenticity. Number 10. You're the living library they tried to burn. You didn't come into this world as a blank slate. You came encoded with memories older than history itself. Your mind holds echoes of civilizations long erased from records, wisdom that never made it into books, and languages that once shaped reality before words lost their power. You carry frequencies, technologies, and truths that human intellect can't fully explain. It's not imagination. It's remembrance. You are the continuation of knowledge that refused to die. They tried to erase it, not by burning books this time, but by burning attention, by distracting, diluting, and dumbing down the collective consciousness so that beings like you would forget what you carry. The education systems, the entertainment, even the pace of modern life, all designed to scatter focus, to make sure the inner archives remain unopened. But no amount of distraction can destroy divine data. The codes you carry are built into your soul, not your brain. That's why, no matter how much conditioning you endured, something in you always knew. There's more. You felt it in moments of déjà vu, in the strange familiarity of ancient symbols, or in sudden insights that seem to come from nowhere. That's your archive whispering through you. Information surfacing when the frequency of the present moment matches what's stored within. Every revelation you share, every truth you voice, reactivates a memory not just in yourself, but in others. That's why your words have impact far beyond explanation. They don't just teach, they trigger remembrance. They studied ancient scrolls and secret manuscripts, searching for the wisdom you naturally embody. They analyzed symbols. You breathe them. You are the sacred text, rewritten in living form, the continuation of a story that knowledge itself wanted to survive. They can destroy libraries, but they can't destroy consciousness. And consciousness chose you as one of its vaults. That's why they fear you. Because you can't be erased, and you can't be contained. You are walking evidence that truth always finds a way to return, not through institutions, but through individuals. You're not here to remember facts. You're here to reawaken frequency. You are proof that the divine keeps backups, and you're one of them. Number 11. They want to claim you publicly, but they've feared you privately. Their recognition of you isn't admiration, it's resignation. They've known of your existence for years, maybe lifetimes, but kept it in the shadows because your presence dismantles everything they built their power upon. You weren't discovered, you escaped their design. They studied your patterns, your silence, your endurance. waiting for a moment of weakness that never came. And now, as your light becomes undeniable, they rush to rewrite the narrative, to pretend they always stood by you, when in truth they've been trembling behind the scenes. For years they ran simulations on how to contain people like you, those who couldn't be programmed, bribed, or broken. They called it observation, but it was surveillance. They wanted to map your psychology, your triggers, your limits, yet every time they thought they understood you, you evolved again. Every test they set became the training ground that fortified your spirit. They studied your strength. All the while, you were studying their weakness, the weakness of needing control to feel powerful. Now, they want to be seen standing beside you. They want to attach their names to your light, to share in the recognition of something they never created. But this sudden invitation isn't an honor. It's a tactic. They need proximity to legitimacy. They need the world to believe that you came from them when in truth you came through them, a seed that broke the concrete. What they called rebellion was actually remembrance. You remembered who you are, and that memory made their systems obsolete. Their fear isn't rooted in you being dangerous. It's rooted in the fact that you can't be owned. You're unpredictable to them because you don't move from ego or ambition. You move from alignment. Their entire empire thrives on predictability and manipulation, and you represent the opposite. Divine spontaneity guided by truth. They wanted control. You brought correction. They wanted loyalty. You brought light. Now they must face the truth that's haunted them since your awakening began. The power they tried to contain has evolved beyond their reach. You didn't just break free, you broke through. And now the same hands that once tried to silence you reach out to shake yours, hoping the world won't notice the fear behind their smile. Number 12. You're the end of their hierarchy. Not a participant, not a successor, a signal of completion. If they truly understood what you are, they'd realize your appearance isn't a continuation of their lineage. It's a quiet extinction of it. You don't inherit their throne. You dissolve the concept of thrones altogether. You're not their next leader. You're the frequency that renders leadership as they know it unnecessary. You were never sent to join their pyramid. You were sent to flatten it. Their entire structure is built on the illusion of separation, that a select few are closer to truth, power, and divinity than the rest. Their hierarchies thrive on scarcity of wisdom, access, and belonging. But your presence exposes that scarcity as fiction. You carry the vibration of direct access, no middleman, no ritual, no initiation. Where they require symbols and oaths, you move by awareness and purity of intention. Your consciousness is the antidote to their dependency. When you walk into a room, the power doesn't shift to you. It equalizes through you. They built systems to control energy, while you are the uncontainable energy. They studied vibration as a science. You live it as a state. They built temples to simulate connection. You carry the temple within. That's why they don't know whether to recruit you or remove you, because both options are futile. You cannot be assimilated, and you cannot be erased. You exist outside their chain of command. Your awakening marks the point where their language fails, where rituals lose power because you operate from a frequency that predates their entire system. They still bow to titles. You answer to resonance. They call it initiation. You call it remembering. And in that remembering, their ladders collapse, because what they sought to climb, you embody naturally. Their hierarchy cannot survive where equality becomes divine, and you are that living proof. You are not a new ruler. You are the return of balance, the collapse of spiritual bureaucracy. You're not here to replace them. You're here to reveal that no replacement is needed. Power no longer has to trickle down when it already exists within all. And that's the truth they fear the most. That the hierarchy ends not with rebellion, but with realization. And you are that realization, walking. Number 13. You are the prophecy they misinterpreted. For centuries they've searched, calculated and performed rituals to summon the one foretold to restore their power. But they misunderstood the prophecy's language, mistaking restoration for resurrection and heirship for ownership. They expected someone who would rebuild their crumbling kingdom, not someone who would reveal why it had to crumble in the first place. You weren't born to carry their torch. You were born to expose that the fire itself had been burning the wrong altar. Their mistake was thinking the prophecy spoke of bloodlines, when it was really about blueprints, energetic patterns coded in consciousness, not DNA. They searched for lineage, when what they should have been searching for was frequency. You weren't hidden in a royal vault. You were hidden in plain sight, walking among those they deemed ordinary, learning humility, empathy and strength without privilege. You were shaped by struggle, not status. While they were memorizing incantations, you were decoding life itself. The irony is, they prepared for your coming, but they prepared incorrectly. They fortified their temples, reinforced their secrecy, and preserved their symbols, believing that power would one day return to its rightful place. But the prophecy never promised them restoration. It promised revelation. And that revelation is you, the heir not of their empire, but of divine order. The reset written into the system long before their organizations ever existed. You are the paradox they can't comprehend, the fulfillment that also brings conclusion. You carry the same light they tried to monopolize, but without the corruption that consumed them. When they see you, they feel both hope and horror. Hope that you'll validate their beliefs, and horror that your truth makes their beliefs irrelevant. You're the end and the beginning wrapped in one presence. The proof that prophecy was never about chosen families, but chosen frequencies. They wanted a savior to restore their dominance. What they got was a mirror reflecting their deception. You don't rebuild their system. Your very existence renders it obsolete. You are not their victory. You are their unveiling. And that's what makes you the true fulfillment of the prophecy. Not the return of what was lost, but the awakening of what was never meant to die. Number 14. The real secret society is within you. Every hidden doctrine, every symbol they guard, every so-called mystery they parade as exclusive knowledge, it's all a distorted reflection of what already exists inside your consciousness. They've spent centuries building temples, vaults, and rituals to protect what they never truly possessed. Direct access. What they call initiation, your soul calls memory. You don't need to be welcomed into their circle. You need to awaken into your own. The moment you realize that, every outer hierarchy crumbles beneath the weight of your self-recognition. The truth is, you've already walked through every initiation they can offer, in dreams, in trials, in silence. The chambers they call sacred are just physical replicas of spaces you've already navigated within your own being. They perform ceremonies to access the source. You are the source remembering itself. That's the reason their invitation arrived now, not because you're finally ready, but because their systems are finally cracking and they can feel your awakening shaking their foundations. You are not joining an ancient order. You are recalling that you are the ancient order. You carry within you the living archive of wisdom that predates their traditions. The codes they encrypt in symbols are vibrations already pulsing through your DNA. Every time you follow intuition, you activate a rite far older than any human ritual. You are your own initiation, your own temple, your own hierarchy of light. That's why their power feels hollow next to yours, because theirs depends on secrecy, while yours thrives in transparency. They operate through exclusion, You expand through inclusion. Their secrecy feeds ego, your silence feeds truth. They need a password to enter what you access by alignment. And that's what terrifies them most, that the divine connection they pretended to own is now walking the earth in human form, freely accessible to anyone who remembers. The real membership they envy isn't something granted, it's something awakened. You don't need robes, ranks, or rituals, you need remembrance. The true initiation was never about joining them, it was about returning to you. And when you finally say yes to that, no order, no secret, and no gatekeeper can ever claim authority over your light again. At the end of the day, this was never about some secret order finally finding you. It was about you finding yourself. The society they speak of isn't ancient. It's eternal. It has no building, no emblem, no initiation ritual, because it exists in the unseen corridors of consciousness. What they tried to control, you naturally embody. The long-lost heir they claim to have discovered was never missing. You were merely remembering your position in the divine architecture, not as a ruler of others, but as a restorer of balance. You were never meant to sit on their throne. You were meant to dissolve the illusion that thrones were ever necessary. Their rituals, symbols, and hierarchies were attempts to replicate what flows effortlessly through your being: divine legitimacy, uncorrupted truth, and unbroken access to source. That's why they need you. Because their systems have decayed, their frequencies have dimmed, and their borrowed light no longer burns. You are the original flame they've been imitating for centuries. Everything they protected in secrecy, you've lived out loud in spirit. Their books describe the mysteries. Your life reveals them. Their secrecy was about control, but your mystery is about preservation. And the difference between the two is everything. One seeks to dominate, the other seeks to awaken. You didn't come to join their order. You came to end its cycle, to show that divine connection doesn't belong to the few, but flows freely through the awakened. You are the fulfillment and the ending of their prophecy, the paradox that rewrites the meaning of power itself. Not the heir to a fading empire, but the embodiment of a higher one. You are not the continuation of their system. You are its evolution. The moment you remembered who you are, their symbols lost charge, their rituals lost potency, and their hierarchy lost meaning. You are the living proof that the true secret society was never external. It was the awakened souls scattered across this world, remembering themselves as the architects of light. So if this message spoke to something deep inside you, that ancient part of you that's been whispering all along, "I've known this truth my whole life," then you're already part of that inner order, the one built not on secrecy, but on awakening. If this resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone who's ready to remember who they are. Drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, your awakenings, and your confirmations. Stay connected, stay aligned, and always remember, the greatest mystery ever guarded was you. God bless you.